Elevate yourself. Empower others. Welcome to Coach Approach Podcast. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
For someone hearing your name for the first time, how do you like to answer the question, what do you actually do for leaders?
Oh boy. For years, for decades, especially for people who are coaches, this will be really important. For years, I answered that question by finding out what that person really needed or what their frame of reference was so that they could understand what I do. And it's actually really hard to come up with a generic response to that captures it. Uh,
Hmm.
so I've been giving that a lot of thought lately because my brand is getting more and more well known. I get invited to podcasts almost every week. I'm uh, well regarded, and it occurred to me that my online presence needs to reflect what I actually do. So I've been struggling to figure out exactly how to frame it. And I think the best way I've come up with so far is that you know, for more than 2 decades, I've helped founders and executives remove the leadership drag that's holding back their results. And what that can mean is internal drag. They might have something around their belief system or their values or their clarity or their confidence that's getting in the way of them making the high value decisions that they need to make quickly. And a lot of times it's also a drag that often translates into drag that shows up in their team or in their operational systems or in them often taking on too much on their own plate and not delegating sufficiently. Those kinds of things are super, super common. And that kind of drag creates hidden and also visible friction across the whole system, only always and only for everyone. So that's really what I would say at this point. And what that looks like is dependent on the particular person I'm working with and exactly what they're up against. Some leaders have really clear vision and clear decision making, and they're not maybe, and they're clear on the technology or the innovation or the value proposition of their business, but they may not actually be experienced or know how to handle personalities that are different than theirs but still offer great value on their team, or they may not understand how to handle conflict within their team or how they might be at the root of the conflict being there because they don't think they are. And yet they've created an environment in which that conflict can grow. And they don't know how to be accountable for that. So, a lot of what I'm actually doing is making the invisible visible to them and then strategizing with them exactly how to solve it. I know I'm kind of going on, but I'll just tell you that a lot of coaches are good at making the invisible visible, and maybe not so much at how to strategize the repair for that, for the problems that that's caused. And some coaches are really good at the strategy, but not so much at surfacing hidden issues. And I would say the thing that makes me unique is that I do both really well.
Mhm. MIT says something like 95% of AI implementations fail to produce measurable ROI. And what do you think? Why do so many AI projects fail? Not just technically, but from a people and systems perspective.
Oh, it's such a great question, and I agree with you. It is, there's an argument whether it's 80% or 95% or somewhere in between, but it really doesn't matter because that is way too high of an ROI failure rate. And I would say there are two reasons. One of them is simply that implementing and adopting AI systems in a company is still a new thing, and many companies are just not that clear on exactly how to do it and what the vision should be. And frankly, there are too many AI tools, and it's very, very difficult to figure out which ones are the most robust, which ones are going to stick around, which ones integrate the best with other systems. So I'm going to give that answer just because it's definitely the elephant in the room. It's part of the issue. But the real issue is because there are still somewhere between 5 and 20% of AI adoptions that are producing a significant ROI, those companies have first of all, gotten expert assistance early in the process so that they're not trying to figure it out for themselves. I know a founder of a $100 million company who literally spent more than 100 hours building his own N8N automation to take away a simple problem. And to be fair, it was a costly problem and it was worth building, but it wasn't worth his time to build. And for founders and senior leaders to recognize that there really are people who know what they're about and how to help them get that kind of stuff done quickly is really important. But before they even decide on those kinds of projects, they need to understand what the most high leverage, high ROI, strategic adoption actually is. And again, the leaders that are getting the ROI are tapping experts to help them strategize what that is and to strategize how leadership's focus needs to be on the change management aspect of it, on helping their teams actually adopt the change. And again, leveraging the expert that they've built a relationship with or that they've met along the way is the best way to do it. And what we've seen with our clients is that sometimes we're doing complex adoption projects, implementations, that kind of stuff. And then they're having us come in and help their, still nervous users figure out how to use ChatGPT and how to write prompts that work and how to get comfortable just at that most basic level. And then as soon as they do, they're much more willing to adopt the more complex system that's been put in place. And they're more able to actually turn that into real results and ROI and outcomes that make a difference in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question, Marco? I want to make sure that I'm
Yeah,
not drifting too far.
yeah. Maybe what's actually going wrong inside those organizations? Like maybe
Oh,
shorter.
yeah, so it could be, in every organization, there's most likely there's going to be, depending on the size, right? There's a senior leader, there's an executive or a founder or an owner. There's going to be some people on staff, and there maybe is also a board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And all those groups have individual people in it who run the gamut from extremely scared of, uncomfortable with, or unfamiliar with AI tools, all the way up to very savvy
Mm-hmm.
and everything in between, right? And so the purpose of the organization is to accomplish whatever their purpose is. It's to build their product, it's to deliver their service, it's to achieve a mission. It's not actually to use AI tools. And so the tools are there to help them achieve their mission. And when people get told that their entire operational system needs to be overhauled and turned into an AI driven workflow, most often they feel like what that means is that now they have to put their full attention on mastering this new workflow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they take their attention off of their vision and their mission. And the thing that organizations need to really understand is that these tools are tools in service to the mission and the vision. And it's also a little bit like moving from horse-drawn buggies to gas-powered automobiles. It's a huge change in the way we do work. That move into automobiles meant that we could do business with people that were much farther away. People could move further away from their families and their communities. Regular things could occur on a daily basis that were in a much bigger geography. And likewise, the AI revolution means that many companies, the early adopters, are going to be able to do ordinary tasks that are in service to their mission far faster and in a far more integrated way. And so that's the shift.
Mm-hmm.
My philosophy about it is that human beings still bring a genius and an empathy and a systems awareness that AIs still don't mimic very well. AI tools can't actually be emotionally intelligent at this stage. They can sort of act like they are, but they aren't really. And we see lots of examples of that breaking down. So what we need is for the humans inside the system to do the thing that they're genius at more, and to do
Hmm.
more of it. And with that perspective, we get really excited about being able to automate the manual tasks and the tedious tasks and the things that take way too long, like finding a piece of written material that we know we have, but we don't know where it is. That kind of stuff. Data retrieval, we call it, right?
Hmm.
So those kinds of things, and then taking barriers and silos down between parts of organizations so the communication happens more effectively, and doing that while still protecting proprietary or sensitive data or private data or what have you. And all of that's possible, but it's a complex world. And so I've tapped Caltech graduates who are AI experts to help me, and miraculously, even though they're in high demand, they still show up for our clients. So, we need to recognize that we're at the middle of the beginning of a huge sea change, and if we don't jump on board, we are gonna, and we still try to have our little community be horse-drawn buggy range, it'll be limited for us over time, and maybe eventually catastrophically so. So we kind of need to understand these tools are critical, but they aren't the point,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yes, 100% makes sense. And what do you think with AI adoption of companies? Where are we? And how long it takes to be adopted? At what means being adopted by
You
AI?
know, that's a great question. And here's what I do with actual clients. We look at their entire operational system as it is today. And many of them are still using yellow pads to handwrite notes, right? And that's okay. There's nothing in the world at all wrong with that. So we look at the operational system the way it actually exists, and then we identify the thing that's going to make the biggest difference if they just make one thing a little bit less arduous, a little less time consuming, a little less full of friction. And we just start with one thing at a time. For companies where the owner or the founder or the stakeholder, whoever that is, already has adopted some AI tools and already is ready for a bigger integration, we can handle that too. But with most companies, we start with just one thing. So in my company, for example, I had a situation about a year ago where I was having up to as 70 15-minute phone calls in the space of just a month and a half. And my commitment is to follow up from every phone call in Zoom with a short follow-up email, just to capture what we said and what the next steps are, and just to, demonstrate my commitment to care and relationship with the people I was with. And I was completely overwhelmed with that many calls, especially with a full practice and clients that I was talking to, and I just couldn't keep up. So I built an engine. And by the way, there are things like Fathom, which is a note-taking tool, for example, right? And Fathom will offer to write you an email follow-up, but the email follow-up sounds like an AI wrote it. Even though it sounds pretty good, it's still clear that it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be really from me. So
Hmm.
I built an automation that would track who I had appointments with, store all that data in a particular place, save the transcript, turn it into an email that was by an engine that was trained on my voice, my thinking style, my content, so that it sounded a lot like me, and then put it in my drafts folder. And then all I had to do was go in and check the draft and say, oh, this one's really good. I'm sending it as is. I could have written it myself. Or more often, oh, I probably wouldn't say, I hope this finds you well. And I can remove that and say, hey, buddy, it was so great to see you today. Right. And so I just like transform that stuff, but the summary of the content was usually pretty accurate and exactly what we needed. And that way I didn't, it just took so much less time. And that's the kind of thing that I started with a year ago. And then my tech team came in and saw what I built. I was just like that $100 million company founder who spent more than 100 hours on his automation. I spent probably way too much time building that one myself. And then my tech team came in and took a look at it and said, well, this is really great, but we can make it better. And they did. And it's so much better and it never breaks and it just works every single time. So, I don't mind when owners and founders experiment with building those things themselves. I think they should do it at least once so that they understand what they're, up against. But then it's way better to spend, I don't know, $1,500 or something like that, or $2,500 to have an expert come in and just do it for you one time, and then it's set up. And when a company does that, and it's at scale, it's a little bit more expensive than in a solo practice, right? But if a company does that, the ROI is huge because you multiply that time savings across everybody who's using that tool. And for me, it saved, well, first of all, it got work done that wouldn't get done otherwise. So that's big. And it saved hours and hours and stress and resistance and, not and hating my life kind of moments where I didn't want to do it, that kind of stuff.
I mean, that's a great example. Can you maybe give us another example what an intelligent core might look like in, say, a 50 to $100 million company?
Sure. So one of our clients needed a system. So they have offices all over the US, and they have client-facing contractors related to every single one of those satellite offices. So they might have like 1,000 people doing work under the umbrella of their company. And their company did all aspects of construction, repair, remediation, landscaping, like everything you can imagine in the world of coming in and fixing things in your house or building or remodeling or things like that, right? And so they had every single person that they had contracted to or employed directly was spending money every single day on a company credit card. And they needed to reconcile every single one of those expenses against that particular project. And they had hundreds and hundreds of projects executing every day. So you can imagine that this took enormous numbers of hours. If it took one person in each of their offices 8 hours a week, that would be 800 hours a week that were being spent on that. And so they wanted to build an automation. They wanted us to build them an automation that reduced that 8 hours to maybe half. And what we were able to do is turn it into 30 minutes. And it's accurate and brilliant. And every once in a while, their finance people go in and do spot checks and audit. But in the beginning, we built the automation. And then we had people watching each of the transactions and checking it to make sure it was really working. And it was. And then we tweaked a few things like, well, we'd like it to show up in this place as well, not just on that spreadsheet, but on this one too. We'd like that spreadsheet to get moved into this place every month or whatever it was, right? So we did all those tweaks. And then after a little bit of sort of pressure testing the system, it was accurate and it was working, and we just let it rip. And they've gone now quite a long time with that. And they've been able to shift the work time of the people who were reconciling those things to something else far more interesting for them and more productive. I mean, even accountants don't love reconciling credit card receipts. It's just not
Nobody
much
likes
fun. It's not a great use of human intelligence. So they were able to put those people to work doing much more high value things.
Yeah, all two examples are in saving time. Uh, can you share
But
some?
also money, right?
Yeah.
Because it also allowed them to catch when double entries were happening. It allowed them to make sure their reimbursements were accurate. It also allowed them to scan for when maybe things were getting purchased on the credit cards that shouldn't be. So there was a whole lot of fraud detection available in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you another example very quickly that's really super useful also, which is we've built a marketing bot engine, and this is directly tied to ROI, where we have our client put in a description of the product they want to build. We've got it set up as an agent. So we send the description to a model whose job it is to assess the framing and value proposition in the product against best practices, world-class practices in marketing copy. And then the client gets to assess the options that come out, tweak them, and then send back in a final one that they like the most. And then the bot takes that and turns it into a proposed email marketing campaign, set of posts, that kind of thing. We have an agent that's attached to it that can be used also, where it helps frame the most likely high sales packaging of that product. And all of that, even if you use ChatGPT in a direct interface, or, you know, even custom GPTs, would have taken a lot of manual effort over days and days and days. And now this happens on its own over the space of 10 minutes. So that's big.
Yeah, that's really big. I work on the same things, and I
Yeah.
see it brings a lot of value, and it's time consuming also
Yes.
on the both ends.
Right.
Uh,
But once you build the automation, it's built. And yeah, it might need some tweaking over time, but it's pretty good.
uh, Many founders listening feel the pressure to do something with AI,
Yeah.
but, but they don't want to burn out their team or break the culture. From your experience, what are the
Yeah.
biggest leadership mistakes you see when they try to drive AI change?
Well, I think I have heard this from so many leaders. They want to use the team they already have, right? And so they task the most interested in AI tools person on the team to go and do some research. But the problem is there's 50,000 AI tools out there. And the only thing that that person could possibly do is either do a deep research, you know, prompt in Perplexity or Chat GPT, or, you know, some or Grok or something else like that, and see what it comes up with. But actually, those LLMs are not great at investigating every option. They're terrible at selecting tools. They go 5 or 6 hits deep at the most. They don't go very far. And so you end up having to do a lot of iterating and say, well, what does it really do this? And what other tools are there? And so that ends up wasting a lot of time. I personally rely on a team that researches the tools 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because there's 9 of them scattered all over the world. And so their whole job is to assess what's robust, what's not going to be here today and gone tomorrow, what has constant updates, whether its purpose is to scrape your personal data or its purpose is to actually deliver a service. There are a whole bunch of parameters like that that they check. And then I rely on that team, and then I assess the capabilities of those tools against each other. And that just seems to be a whole lot better. If a leader is tasking an internal person whose main job is to do something else, and then, oh, by the way, on the side, go figure out what tools would be best for this, that's a terrible idea, because they simply cannot have the expertise and depth and access to information that they need to have in order to do that well. So it's just ever so much more worthwhile to hire someone for not that much money to, you know, figure it out for you, who's an expert in it, rather than your person comes up with and says, well, you know, Copilot is really good because it integrates all these things. And then they use it and figure out that Copilot keeps them captive to an internal system that maybe doesn't actually help them with certain things they want to do down the road. And maybe an expert could have spotted that and given them some more versatile options to start with, so they don't
Mhm.
have to undo what they already did. Right.
And on the other side, what does effective, sustainable AI leadership actually look like?
Oh, I'm going to be really straightforward with you, Marco, and say I'm not sure that we know yet.
Mm,
I would say that for now, it looks like coming up with an AI policy really early on, based on values, based on mission, and based on vision, but hold it lightly. Understand that things are still changing quickly in the world of AI. Our rules and regulations are changing, limitations are changing, um, models are changing. So best to get, I think, a high level view of what your intentions and purposes are. And again, name them, but hold them lightly, knowing that things can change over time. It's a lot like a new relationship, right? You might think you've met the person of your dreams, and you could well be right. But until you've been together for some time, you're not going to know where the real issues are. And so you have to hold your assumptions and expectations a little bit lightly, but also remember what the core reason for committing to that particular path really is. And I think it's the same thing with AI. I think we know that even with all the things that we're uncomfortable about with AI, that if we want to be sustained over time, we need to build an AI-enabled technology core. There's almost no company out there that isn't a tech company at the end of the day now, because everything is infused with technology and AI. So if you know that, and you know what your main purpose is, my purpose is to shine the light of greatness that exists inside every person and organization I work with brightly, so that they can get out of their own way and soar. That's my life purpose. It's my soul's purpose. If I ever lost sight of that and thought, well, my purpose is to use these cool AI tools, then I would be in trouble. I wouldn't have anything to offer.
mm,
So I need to, and every business owner and leader needs to know their core purpose and mission and keep that as their North Star all the time. And then build an AI core vision that allows them to execute on that in a new way, while keeping the core, I want to say, classic purpose
mm,
alive and at the heart of what they're doing. And there's no we're not replacing humans. I mean, I say that knowing fully well that my sons recently graduated from college with a computer science degree, and they feel a little replaced. So I'm not suggesting that there's nothing being replaced by AI. That's not true. But it's not replacing human intelligence. It's simply the things that human beings used to have to master, we don't have to master. The same way kids that have calculators in math class don't actually have to know how to
mhm.
multiply the big numbers together or be able to do it in their head the way that we used to have to before we had HP calculators. We just don't have to do it. And likewise, simple code doesn't need to be written by a computer scientist anymore.
Sure.
But the code that gets written by AIs doesn't necessarily do what we really want it to do at a nuanced and subtle level. And we still need experts to make sure that machine generated stuff meshes, the gears of that mesh with the gears of human work appropriately. And
Mhm.
that human work is going to evolve over time. So AI leadership needs to be at that nexus.
On psychological side, you
Yeah.
wrote about damage regret loop, like
Yes.
holding back, then exploding. How does that pattern show up when leaders are under AI pressure? And
Oh gosh.
what's a healthier alternative?
I love that you brought that up, because honestly, that is my favorite place to play with leaders. Because even extraordinarily brilliant leaders have blind spots. I have them. We all have them. And I think as leaders, our most honorable and effective journey to be on is to be always on the evolutionary edge of exposing a new blind spot and making slight edge improvements in how we become more self-aware and more in command and in control. That's the maturing process of every leader. that's
Mhm.
gonna the AI pressures are simply another way to be annealing. Annealing is a term that refers to compressing metal so that it becomes an amalgam that's really solid. And so it takes a lot of heat and a lot of pressure and a lot of weight and all that stuff. And leaders are annealed by the experience of life, of leading in the world. The leader who's in a leadership role for the first time in their first year isn't maybe terribly annealed just yet, and not terribly mature. And they will be, because they're going to face challenges. And so right now, even leaders who've been coasting because they've maybe been at it for a couple decades and they sort of had all the traditional stuff handled, they're thrown in the AI transformation challenge, and now they have to up their game. They have to up their game in a whole new way. And man, I have a coach, Marko. I think everybody should have coaches, but especially leaders. Leaders desperately need to have a trusted advisor who they can call, who's going to be professional enough to keep their own agenda out of the way and really be in their corner, and who's smart and savvy enough about all the things that they're dealing with, not necessarily the core of their business, but the things that they deal with as leaders, that they can be of use to them. And I think that that's the fastest way to mature yourself as a leader. I think, to answer your question really directly, leaders are being challenged to up their game by the AI adoption demand. There's no question about it.
Let's make this super practical. If a
Yes.
founder or executive is listening right now and thinking, we need to move on AI, but we are already stretched, what's a simple 30-day starting plan you would recommend?
Honestly, for someone who's stretched but can afford I don't know, anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 investment. It depends on the size of their team. I would say just hire an AI consulting team, preferably not one of the big fancy ones, because they usually have a lot more brand rather than substance. My company does that, just full transparency. I would just say hire someone like that. What we do in 30 days is we interview all the stakeholders, all the people on the team, on the board, in the leadership role, who are using the operational systems in your company that you want to assess. And then we help you get clarity on exactly what you should do first and what you should do next. And depending on how we arrange the engagement, we'll even do some of those implementations for you. And then we come in and just make it super short and sweet and quick for your team to adopt it and learn it. And we do that in a way that helps them put their fears to rest so they're not resisting the adoption. And that's the quickest, fastest path to getting it done without further taxing your team. Because if they can't spend 30 to 60 minutes in a conversation with someone, then the issue isn't how are you going to adopt AI. The issue is you need more people so that your folks have 30 to 60 minutes to have a conversation that moves the business forward, right? But most people can afford that sometime in 30 days. And we just accommodate that. We find out what there is to know. We make sure our experts get a look at it. We are very careful with it, and we come back with clear, precise blueprint. This is your highest ROI move. This is the thing you need to do in order to make that possible. This is what you should do first, second, third. We can do this part for this much, that for that much, or you can have your internal people do it. Whatever you want. I think that's the fastest. Otherwise they are going to have to overtax their team more.
Yes, this has been gold, Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect, real gold. If
Well, I'm
someone
glad. I mean, I love working with other owners and leaders and thought leaders, and it's just my great pleasure to be in the conversation with them.
Thank you. And if someone wants to go deeper with you on this, where is the best place to find you and your work?
The tag right here on my video is the exact name that I show up under on LinkedIn. So easy to find me on LinkedIn, and you'll know you're in the right place when you see this face. And Denver, Colorado, or Colorado area, that's where I'm based. Another great way to find me is, and maybe you can put this in the show notes, is at focusedleadershipconsulting.com. And there's a contact page on that website, and you can send me an email. And I'd love to talk with you.
We'll put all those links in the description. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me on the Coach Approach.
Yeah, my great pleasure, Marko. Thank you for having me. It's been a great honor.
Elevate yourself. Empower others. Welcome to Coach Approach Podcast.